back on my life, it turns out I was a pretty nerdy kid when I was growing up.
My childhood was filled with cartoons and anime, and even to this day, they're still my drug of choice. When I was growing up, I was that little nerdy kid who would pretend like they were Goku and run around play fighting everyone.
I remember my childhood best friend and I, we were obsessed with Pokemon, and we created Pokemon cards before they were even a thing, and we went to school and sold them all, and it was such a great time.
For as long as I can remember, I've always been a huge gamer. I'd throw sleepovers at my house, and my friends and I would play Tekken and a whole bunch of other video games until the wee hours of the morning.
I was a pretty nerdy kid when I was growing up, and not much changed the years after either.
In high school, I continued to watch anime. I started to read manga. I played those stupid Bishoujo games and owned a Tamagotchi, and I had every games console you could buy. Later on, I'd get addicted to motorsport and JDM and drift culture, and I'd ride motorbikes and got obsessed with the idea of riding the Motegi circuit one day.
And then when I finished high school and the idea of becoming an adult was staring me in the face, I watched all my friends take gap years and go on wild Kentucky tours and backpack across Europe and do all that fun stuff. Cool shit like seeing the world and getting out there. Me? I went in the complete opposite direction.
I didn't care at all about travel back then. I think at the time I'd only been to like 3 different countries in my life. I also hated classroom learning. I've always been a self-starter, a self-learner. And so as my friends were out exploring the world or starting their uni lives, I got into the workforce and started building my career.
In hindsight, getting a 4-year head start on most people my age was a pretty good thing. It turned out to be a pretty good move for me. But yeah, I never got to see the world, and at the time I didn't really care that I did either. I was just some nerdy dude who would go to work and then come home and play video games all night.
When I was 20, I started my design career. It was at this time that I was looking for design-related stuff to get inspired by. Throughout my early design career, I stumbled across a whole bunch of stuff, but I distinctly remember the first time I saw things like minimalistic Japanese graphic design and how different Japanese typesetting was.
I remember the first time I came across ukiyo-e and woodblock printing and the philosophies of wabi-sabi and Japanese ceramics, and man, I was so enamored with it compared to all the other influences in my life. Those things just stuck to me. And then as an adult, when, I was trying to figure out the whole life thing and, trying to navigate my way through it, I realized that there were so many parallels between traditional Japanese thinking and philosophies and the work that I was producing.
Things like simplicity and an obsession with stripping things down to the absolute essentials. Things like a positive focus on aesthetic beauty rather than a shaming of form over function. Things like contrast and the idea of balance and healthy opposition. These are all ideas that I've used heavily in my visual language over the last decade, and I still use to this day. But all of these were my roots. These were some of the biggest parts of my nerdy life when I was growing up and when I was trying to figure out who the hell I was.
And then I started photography, and I made a whole bunch of new friends in this space, and they're still people that I hang out with today. And it was back then that I really started to think about travel and started to get really addicted to it. And I remember the first time that I went to Japan, I wanted to go so badly, but I didn't want to go alone. Solo travel for me back then wasn't really a thing in my realm of possibility like it is today. And it was only after a year or so of constantly bringing it up with my friends that we managed to finally have the opportunity to go. And we decided to go to Hong Kong for some reason or another, but we also decided to add some days to Japan before it. And so in 2017, for the first time, I went to Japan.
And I didn't fall head over heels for it the first time I stepped foot in the country. I didn't instantly fall in love with it or solve a lifetime's worth of existential problems in a single day. It wasn't that romantic, as much as I'd love for that to be real because it would make a pretty cool story.
But instead, I'd actually return a couple of times that year, and it's only then that I started to really fall in love with it. It was slow and steady.
And there was something about it. The first time you step foot in a konbini, or your first Ichiran experience, or the first time your brain explodes when you see Mount Fuji. It was also different, but somehow still familiar. And as the visits went by, I started to fall in love with the people, the culture, the coexistence of traditional and modern, the language, the snacks, all of it.
And then I began to question my sanity. I began to ask myself, why do I like this place so much? What is it about this country that just keeps me coming back? Why is it so sticky compared to every other country? Was I just some lovesick puppy dreaming up some twisted, romanticized version of what I thought Japan meant to me?
Regardless, over the years and the many subsequent visits after, I really got to know it deeply. And since 2017, I've spent about a year of my life in Japan across these many trips. And I've explored it from top to bottom, east to west. And I've seen so many weird and wonderful things along the way. Torii gates in the most random, most wonderful places. An art gallery literally inside a mountain. Landscapes that look like they came straight out of an anime.
And the memories, oh my god, the memories.
I remember the time we unintentionally took the hard hiking trail when we decided to climb Mount Fuji, and it almost killed us. And the time we got smacked in the face by a raging snowstorm in Hokkaido, and just how crazy and exciting that was. And that time we were smashing down strong zeros while doing panning shots in the middle of Shibuya Crossing like crazy people.
But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though. Towards the end of my last year living there, I became a little bit bitter and a little bit hateful towards the hard realities of what it's like to live there as an expat for real versus just being a tourist and visiting. But in taking time to reflect on all of my experiences as a whole, I can't help but feel this like deep-seated contentment and joy towards not only the people that I had these experiences with, but the country that I spent them in as well.
And right now I'm back in Sydney. I had to come back because of the pandemic, and having been in Japan just a mere 4 months ago, this slowdown back home has caused me to think about why I love Japan so much again and why I want to go back so desperately. Questions start to pop up again. Why am I so drawn to this place? Why is it always Japan and not some other country? And I think about childhood and my growing up, and I think about identity.
And I realized that our identity is shaped by our past experiences. And it's those experiences that influence our worldviews and the way we think of ourselves.
And then the dots started to connect for me. The floating dots of everything I was interested in or inspired by when I was growing up. The anime, the games, the motorsport, the design, the art, the principles, the culture, all of it. At the time, when I was growing up, I never really cared that much about the fact that so many of these things came from or had a big influence from Japan. It just kind of happened without me noticing. I just kind of naturally gravitated towards them.
But in connecting the dots, I realized that all throughout my life, I've had a steady influx of Japanese presence, of Japanese influence, of Japanese culture. This is my identity, and this is a part of who I am.
And this is why I feel so comfortable and calm when I'm there. It's why I feel such a sense of place. It's why I feel such a sense of connection. It's because, in a way, when I'm connecting to Japan, I'm connecting with parts of myself that I've been cultivating for my entire life.
This year's been pretty insane for all of us. And my friends and I are itching to travel, as I'm sure you are as well. And the question that always comes up is, where do you want to go after this is all said and done? Where do you want to go to when this is finished and we're okay to travel again? And even though I've been to many countries and my bucket list is pretty long, when I'm real with myself and I'm asking myself what I yearn for, it's Japan. And I've come to realize that it's always been Japan, and it probably always will be.